Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to be inspired. On today's episode of Tell Me Your Story, we have a phenomenal guest joining us all the way from Memphis, Tennessee. She is a beacon of hope and inspiration to many, and her name is Jeane Franseen. Jeane is a force to be reckoned with, a true trailblazer in the field of journalism. With her bachelor's degree in electronic media communications journalism from Middle State University and her minors in Spanish and speech theater from Nebrija University, she has proven that she is not afraid to take on new challenges and push herself to new heights. As a news anchor and reporter at Sinclair Broadcast Group on KATV ABC 7, Jeane has made a name for herself as a fierce and dedicated journalist who is committed to bringing the truth to the forefront. Her passion for storytelling is evident in every segment she delivers, and her commitment to journalism has earned her the respect and admiration of viewers all over the world. So, whether you're a budding journalist, a fan of Jeane's work, or simply looking for some inspiration to help you achieve your dreams, you're in for a treat today. So sit back, relax, and get ready to hear the incredible story of Jeane Franseen on Tell Me Your Story.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for watching or listening to the podcast, Tell Me Your Story. This is your host, Chris Baker, and you guys probably know her, and you've probably seen her before. Like, where does she look familiar? Is she on TV? Is she a news reporter? Is she a reporter? Where have I seen her before? Well, that is Jeane Franseen, and she is here to tell her story. She's going to tell us how it began, how it started, how she got on the news, how she became a reporter / news anchor. So let's give it up for her.
Thank you, Francie.
Yeah. So let's begin. Let's talk about, where does it start for you? Where'd you grow up at? How was your childhood?
Okay, childhood was great. I have two amazing parents. They always pushed me to be my best self, still do to this day. Born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. Elementary, middle, high school, all there. Went to college right up the road in Murfreesboro, which is about 30 minutes from Nashville, Tennessee. Okay. Went to Middle Tennessee State University, graduated, and started in news right after that.
Sure, look at you. And you could actually say you were walking in Memphis.
Walking in Memphis, walked in Memphis, ran in Memphis, skipped in Memphis, everything in Memphis.
Did you see that? Did you see Elvis out there? Did you see the King?
One thing I did it for a story. I actually worked in my hometown. That was one thing I always wanted to do. So I was a morning reporter there for one of my markets. But I went to Graceland for the first time covering a story. Most people who live in Memphis never visit Graceland. Like, it's not really any hype around it when you're from there. But I get it's a tourist attraction for people who do visit the area.
Well, I could see that too. I mean, especially if you're from the area, you're like, I drove by there many millions of times. It's nothing serious.
Yeah, it's not in the nicest neighborhood. It's not in the safest area. It's gated. I don't know. The house, in my opinion, is just not really that big. But if you're into cars, like foreign cars and all of that, then, you'll see all that. It's a big property, but not that big of a house.
Now, have you said you've been there? You've been there?
Yes, I went there for a story. So Graceland has their anniversary, and then they also do stuff around Christmas time. But I think the reason I covered the story was the Lifetime movie Christmas at Graceland. They had it was like a big motion picture that was done for Lifetime. So I was covering the economic impact and what it meant to the film industry to do that in Memphis. So that's probably what the story was I was covering.
So other than Elvis, give us a feel for what it was like growing up in Memphis.
It was cool. I mean, I stayed out the way. I was always involved in something. Sports, dance. I didn't really do too much going out. As a child, my parents were very strict. They didn't play that. So the skating rink maybe every now and then. I never had issue. I know Memphis, people think of First 48 when they think of Memphis, or they think it's just this rough area. It can be, but you make smart decisions. You don't walk alone at 3:30 in the morning, things like that, where there's crime of opportunity. They see you walking and then they rob you, or worse, God forbid. But Memphis is cool. I love it. It's a very cultural centered area. I do feel like the city needs to grow in certain aspects when it comes to mindset, but it's what you make of it,
Yeah.
That's any place, is what you make of it.
So now, is it like a big high school out there? What was your high school like?
So my graduating class was 545 students. That's graduating. There might have add about 50 or 60 that were supposed to that didn't. So, I guess that's fairly large depending on where you grew up.
What was your high school like? What was your experience?
A melting pot. I loved it. I was in student government, track, majorette team, cheerleading team briefly, debate club, very diverse. It wasn't just like all white or all black in the classroom. You had every ethnicity, every gender, every religious background, or like everything was in there, which was good because when you're having conversations about a certain group, it's nice to hear from that group.
Yeah,
that group is.
You were saying you were the good kid though. You weren't going to no parties or nothing. Your parents were like,
I wasn't. There was nothing out there. There's nothing out there. I was just focused on my studies, trying to get scholarships for college, those type of things. So, yeah.
Did you know right away what you wanted to do in college, or?
So when I was really young, I wanted to be a veterinarian. Okay. And so my parents were always the type of, if this is what you want to do, you're going to go volunteer at an animal shelter or veterinarian's office and see what it's like. So they made me do it. And I saw a surgery. So dogs, when they get bandages, sometimes they'll eat them. And so there's this surgery where they had to cut the stomach open and get the bandages. And I was just sitting there and I felt myself getting nauseous. And I was like, this is not for me. Thought about law for a while. Then I thought about broadcast communications, and I like the storytelling aspect. Still helping people like you would in either of those other fields I just mentioned, but I guess more of a response to it, to where it's not a one and done, like you can continue with the story, or sometimes it is a one and done. Someone needs this, you find it for them, there's that. But sometimes it's an ongoing effort, or, your story helping one person really helps more than one person. It's helping a group of people. So
that's pretty cool. I mean, when I heard Nick's story, he was on here before, and he talked about how it started for him as a kid. He was watching TV, and he kind of just fell in love with the idea of possibly being, like, a reporter, a newscaster. Did you ever have, like, a similar experience to that?
I remember my 6th grade graduation, a meteorologist in Memphis named Ron Childers came and spoke as the, I can't say mistress of ceremony because he's not a woman, but he gave the speech for the ceremony, and it was very empowering. I'll never forget it, but I can't say that I'm one of those people at this moment. I knew that I wanted to be on broadcast. No, I took classes in college. I did the announcements in high school. But it was just an aspect of storytelling that I liked and helping others. Okay. That really just pulled me in.
So you was the one on the TV in high school. You'd come on with the morning announcements?
Sometimes, but sometimes the TV didn't work, so you just heard us on the intercom.
Okay.
However you could get it. Maybe we were walking the halls and talking loudly, letting you know what's going on. However you could get it. But yeah.
Now tell me, kind of tell everybody what that kind of experience was like. Were you a professional at it? Was it like nothing to you? What was going on? Yeah, butterflies. Yeah.
Oh, in high school, it was just me informing my friends what was going on. Like, hey, don't forget to pay your $5 so you can wear jeans on Friday. Hey, don't forget we have this basketball game this weekend, or make sure at the track meet supporting us, those type of things. I didn't feel like a professional. I just felt like I was informing my friends what was going on, because at the lunchroom table, those are questions you're asking, like, girl, do you got your $5 to wear jeans this Friday? We had to wear uniforms because of like gang violence and that type of stuff. So they wanted us all to look alike with our uniforms. So everyone was trying to wear jeans on Friday. So those type of announcements. We weren't up there saying, last Thursday this happened in Ukraine. It was just stuff affecting White Station High School at the time.
Well, that sounds like a lot like my high school experience. We had the uniform, dress code. And then we had the same thing, morning announcements. Someone would be like on the TV talking, telling us what sports was going on, what was going on, what school was. Yeah. Nothing outside of school, like you said.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it was. But I have seen the ones with high schoolers where they're doing a whole newscast. Like they got 2 people up there, they put their blazers on, it's decked out, but it wasn't like that for us.
I was gonna think, like, were you on Channel 1? Remember that one? They used to always put
I was on Channel Intercom. So
Channel Intercom.
Yeah, you just hear us over the loudspeaker.
So was it from this? Is this when you decided, like, when going into college, this was something you would possibly think about doing in the future?
Yeah, I knew going into college that I wanted to major in it. I knew going into college my freshman year that I wanted to do it. My senior year, doing the announcements, and then also watching local news and those type of things, I decided like this is what I want to do. I did my internship in college at Channel 3, which at the time, I don't know if it's still the #1 station in Memphis, but at the time it was the #1 station, so I was really happy about that.
Okay.
But I did my internship with some of my mentors to this day. I still stay in touch with them, but that was like, I'm like, okay, this is it. You know, this is what I want to do. Because you get to go out and do stories with them, make your own story, maybe do a different angle than the reporter did for the newscast that day, see the day-to-day activity, see what's different than what you learned in college. You know, you learn in college how to write a package and all these different things, but then when you're out there, you're like, okay, well, you know, maybe I don't have time to do it this way. I learned in college, I'm gonna do it this way, you know, finding best methods to get the story across to the viewer in a way that makes sense, but also impacts them too.
So what was it like just firsthand when you first got out into the field? What was it like just talking to somebody, especially somebody that just had lost someone, the house got burnt down? What was going on?
Yeah. I guess for me, one of the toughest stories like that was actually when I worked with Nick. So you mentioned Nick Lawton. We worked together in Monroe, Louisiana, and there was a story with a guy who was found dead under his truck. I mean, gasoline dripping on him. And I'll never forget seeing that. And then having to talk to the family, like we're both seeing this real time at the same time. You know, I think the dumbest question to ask a family member is, well, how do you feel? Like, I'm traumatized and I'm not even related exactly. So, you know, that was the first time I ever had to go speak to a family and, you know, put myself in their position, understanding empathy and sympathy and getting the story from them in a respectful manner while also not being invasive and disrespectful of what they're going through at the same time. I still have to do my job while also respecting them. You know, they didn't wake up that morning thinking that they would come home and see their loved one laying underneath the truck. So yeah, I think that was one of the stories where it's like, okay, this is how it goes, you know?
Like, this is real to me now, though. I'm out here in the field, I'm experiencing firsthand.
Yeah, because honestly, with my internship in Memphis, I had never gone to a crime scene. They kind of sent us to, I don't know, maybe every shift I was on, it just didn't happen, you know, but most of the stories I went to were like city council meetings, those type of things. But it got real in Monroe. That's when I saw it firsthand and I was like, okay, we're doing this. This is how it is.
Now, do you ever find yourself, like, when you come across stuff like that, now, do you see yourself wanting to play, like, the investigator? You want to see, like, you want to figure out how this happened, what's going on here, why did it take place? Do you have, like, questions like that going on in your head?
Yeah, so I feel like any new reporter, you know, when they approach their first crime scene, they're just like, okay, let me go in, let me figure it out. But I feel like the more seasoned you are, you kind of take a step back. Like I'm at the crime scene, I'm not rushing to try to find a family member or even rushing to find the PIO. Like I'm taking it all in, I'm looking around, I'm seeing what neighbors are doing, I'm noticing, you know, which areas are blocked off, I'm noticing this, you know, I'm making sure it's safe, especially with what happened in Orlando recently. You know, you kind of got to watch your back at crime scenes as well. And then you know, take best steps. Sometimes I don't always go to the PIO first. Sometimes I'll talk to neighbors first because that's where the PIOs are getting some of their information. They don't know. A lot of them arrive to the crime scene after the news people get there. So yeah, I feel like it's easier dealing with it now than when I first did it, but it's a different thought process. Like before, it's like, okay, let me get the information so I can get back and get this on for the newscast. And now it's more like real time. Like, okay, well now I'm doing a Facebook Live, letting you all see what's going on, and I'm live tweeting. And then, you know, I'm having a live shot saying like, hey, we just got here. We don't really know what's going on, but this is what we do know. And, you know, the questions that you all have at home, we're still working to get those answers for you. And we'll have updates tonight at 10, like that type of stuff. But when you're green, you're just rushing and I don't know any information. Don't write everything in your intro when you toss to me. What's going on? Yeah, exactly. It's not that chaotic anymore.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's what I was thinking too. Like being out in the field that first couple times, them butterflies are going through the roof. Your adrenaline up. You're like, oh my, I'm about to be on live TV, and at the same time, you're trying to be the human side of yourself too, because you just witnessed like like you said, a crazy crime. Somebody was murdered, and you got to talk to the people too, the family, and you got to watch what you say. You can't say certain questions like "How you feeling?"
Yeah, you would hope not. You would hope someone would not ask that.
Like, please don't ask that question.
Yes.
We already
Yeah.
know the answer how they're feeling.
Right.
Talk a little bit more about your background in journalism.
So I graduated from Middle Tennessee State University with my Bachelor of Science in EMC Communications Journalism. I double minored in Spanish and Speech and Theater. Started off in a small market 136. Started off at a bureau. So I was with the Monroe station, but the licensure was in El Dorado, Arkansas. So I was at the bureau for 6 months, proved myself. I moved up to the quote unquote bigger station. Was there, did my 2-year contract. The news director moved to Shreveport. He was like, hey, I know your contract's up. You want to come over here? I'm like, cool. Went to Shreveport for about a year. Then I got a call for a morning position in Memphis. So went home, was a morning reporter. I anchored as well at the desk. Then that news director called. That news director was like, hey, can we have her back? We got a morning anchor position. And eventually that's what I wanted to do, was anchor full time. That was my goal. So I went back to Shreveport for about a year and a half. Now I'm in Little Rock, anchoring and reporting as well. My time here has been interesting. I was hired as a weekend anchor, but since I want to say April of last year, I was solo anchoring mornings because both of the morning anchors left. So I was doing that up until January, and then like maybe the second week of January, I've been back on weekends. So I like to joke and say I've pretty much done everything but engineering. Like I haven't changed a light bulb yet, knock on wood, because they'll ask me to do that next week. But it's been interesting. I've done everything. I started off as an MMJ, then to reporting, now anchoring. I feel like it's important to pay your dues. It's good to start off in a smaller market, make those mistakes. It's kind of different now in the industry. You're seeing people straight out of college in a top 20 market. Depending on who you ask about that, you might get different answers. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like maybe across the board, I don't know if it's budget and they're like, hey, we're allowing people with less experience to work up here because, we don't have the budget to pay someone with 8 years or 10 years of experience. So we're allowing that. I haven't been in those meetings, so that's just speculation. But nevertheless, it's happening across the board. But I started in a smaller market, worked my way up, and I hope to continue to propel my career upwards.
Let's hope it. Let's keep it going, man.
Let's keep it going. Yeah.
What would you say are some of the biggest challenges you face as a news anchor / reporter?
I think it's just a challenge being a journalist in this day and age. I feel like I see so many, and I can even relate to it. I see so many tweets and sometimes even cries for help from my colleagues about burnout. You have to be able to step away from the job sometimes. And when I say that, I don't mean quitting or anything like that. What I mean is on your off days, actually be off. Don't check the Twitter feeds, trying to make sure. As a journalist, you don't want to miss anything because the coming Monday or whatever your schedule is, you want to know, okay, what's the leadable story for the A block that I can pitch, or how can I localize something that happened in California, but I'm here in Little Rock. Like, what can I do? And, you're planning those things Sunday night knowing you have to pitch your story Monday morning, but that's still your off time. So just having a fine balance of, personal life and work life. That's something that I'm just seeing across the board with journalists. Also, I was telling you about, some people getting out of college and starting in bigger markets, it can sometimes be stressful when, that happens because sometimes it puts more work on the people in the newsrooms. Maybe they're not that seasoned to cover the double homicide or to cover the mayoral forum or something like that. So they're given a kind of easier story and you're given like the harder stuff, but that's every single day. They're not having to turn 2 different packages with 2 different angles for the 5 and 6. Maybe they just have a bow side or a anchor pack, something like that. So I don't know. It's conversations that journalists are having across the board, diversity in the newsrooms, a non-toxic work environment, those type of things. And, the conversations need to be had because no one can read your mind. They have to know what's going on in order to fix it. At the same time, you want your voice to be heard, and you want, don't just hear me, but actively listen, and let's come up with a plan so things can get better. So it's just going to be interesting to see how things go. It's not a political year, so all of the money that was raised from campaign advertisements and stuff, I know a lot of newsrooms are looking at like quarterly budgets and thinking of things like that. So it'll be interesting to see.
Now, you were beginning to talk about like on your days off. A lot of people find themselves scrolling through social media, going through the Twitter, Facebook. How do you yourself just unplug completely?
You know what? So I don't know how your device is, but on Sundays I get a text or an alert saying, your percentage on your phone this week was down 12% or up. Like I try to beat that. Yeah, I'm like, how often can I not be on my phone? Because I mean, honestly, if it wasn't for work, I wouldn't be on social media. I didn't get a Facebook until my last year in college because I ran for homecoming for it. Got Twitter for my job.
I gotta say that's pretty good, man. For nowadays.
Yeah, I'm just like, if we're really close and you need me, then you have my number. That's how I feel. Got Twitter in Shreveport. My newsroom was like, Jeane, get Twitter. I was like, okay, I'll get it. Got Instagram maybe 2 years ago. So I barely post on there. I just feel like you need to be present in the moment. If you ever at a restaurant and you see people on a date and like they're both on their phone, you're like, are y'all?
No, I hear you.
There's a disconnect. So that's how I feel as far as like on my time off. I need to put the phones down and connect with where I am and what's going on and enjoy the moment that I'm in. It's easier said than done because, if something's about to go down, like, okay, this candidate's supposed to make this announcement, or, someone said this, I know they're about to tweet a response, I really want to know, but it'll still be there when you finish that workout or when you finish cooking or when you finish, reading that book to your children before bedtime, like it'll still be there.
Yeah. So you're kind of like me in a way where you just post something and then you just log off.
Depending on the situation. And like I said, easier said than done. That's a work in progress.
Yeah. I mean, I respect that too. I hope whoever's watching, listening, is not going to offended by that. We're just simply saying, put the phone down, man, and go back into the real world. Take a break for a bit. You don't need it all the time. If your phone is telling you you're on social media 12 hours, too long, that's saying you need to put it down just a little bit.
Exactly.
You said you're trying to break that time every week. I try to get less and less.
Yes, less and less. And again, that's on my personal phone where it does it. So I have a work phone too. It doesn't give me those updates there. Maybe they turn the setting off so that we don't feel bad about working so much. I don't know. But I know as far as like stuff where I'm checking like the shade room and stuff like that to see what happened in the world of Chris Brown or whomever, like I can wait. It's all good. It's all good.
So how has the world of journalism changed since you first started?
I think when I was, expressing to you as far as, when you get out of college, when I got out of college, I didn't think, okay, let me apply in Atlanta or let me apply in New York. Like those things never crossed my mind. Yeah, those top markets. Now it's, like I was saying, people get out of college, they can apply there. They can potentially get it. They'll hire you as an MMJ, Don't expect to make what those seasoned journalists there are making. You might be struggling. I hope you can pay your rent.
Yeah.
But those type of things. And I think more now, when I first started, it wasn't a digital first component. So most newsrooms now are like new now next. That's the mantra per se. And they'd rather have something on the web before the 5 o'clock than tell people they can get more at 5 o'clock. Whereas before, many times, you wouldn't find out anything until you tuned in to the 5 o'clock news. You weren't getting alerts. Newsrooms didn't have an app. That didn't exist until within a few years. So I think the digital divide and the digital age of news, but then also the new wave of journalists and how they're entering into the journalism field.
Now, would you say it's hurting you guys, or is it helping benefit you more with technology become more advanced?
In the technology aspect, I think it's definitely helping because now you don't have to wait for a press conference to find out what's happened. The PIO will just tweet it real quick. And now every single news station is getting the same information at the same time. Of course, you can still make that phone call and be like, hey, I need this. And you might have that source who will give it to you beforehand, or, they might give you the exclusive. It's always nice to get those. But sometimes, you're all getting the same information at the same time.
Okay. What would you say are some of the most important qualities to have as a news anchor / reporter?
I think across the board, so many times people like to separate the characteristics that you should have as just a human being and the characteristics you should have on the job. I feel like they mesh. So you need to have integrity as a person, regardless. You should have integrity as a news anchor reporter. Morale, being truthful, being honest, having compassion, those type of things. Usually good human beings make good journalists.
Amen.
That's how I feel.
Preach it now. Don't stop. Keep going. Keep going.
Collection plate now. But no, I think that. And I mean, that's with anything. You see sports. 9 times out of 10, a team will keep someone that can't really play that well, but they're marketable because they have a positive attitude. And, they're nice to fans and they're philanthropic in the community. Whereas you have someone that can shoot a 3 like it's nobody's business, but they're always arguing with the refs and bad attitude, and they miss a shot and now they're cursing, and then you're traded.
Look, he's gone.
Yeah, exactly. So putting it into perspective, it's the same with journalism. Your attitude determines your altitude.
Talk about a bit. Talk about the covering the bigger major stories. Your experience with that.
One of the bigger stories I covered was in Memphis. So I don't know if you're familiar with Lorenzen Wright, but he was the first basketball player to be killed by his wife. That whole story, before I got to Memphis, he was murdered before I started working in Memphis, but everything kind of unfolded as far as them finding the weapon, them arresting the ex-wife's preacher who also did her yard work, and then it just all unfolded there. But I guess for that one, being from Memphis and being connected to Lorenzen Wright, I knew his mom. Those type of stories, it's a fine line to where, you're not being biased, but you're also recognizing the fact that, this hits home. This is home. This was someone who, was considered like a hometown hero in a sense, and then, his mom, and you're having to, her outside of work, but you're having to ask her questions. Like, you just heard Lorenzen's ex-wife, because they're no longer married. They were supposedly going through a divorce or something, if I'm not misquoting, during that time. But you just heard Shara get on the stand and say that you can't see your grandkids anymore. First thoughts, those type of things. Or you just heard this guy admit that he and Shara did text back and forth and plan to lure Lorenzen into the woods that night where he was brutally murdered. You had just seen him moments before at your home.
Yeah.
What were your last words? Those type of things. So I think that came.
So dealing with stuff like that, does it mess with you mentally? How do you detox yourself from that kind of stuff as a human being?
There are some stories where I've come home and called my mom or called my dad. I'm like, yo, this happened today and it was wild. And being able to talk about it outside of the newsroom setting, to where if there is a follow-up the next day, I've gotten all of that out of my mind and I can go in with a fresh start. It's always nice. There's sometimes you get connected. I interviewed a girl when I first got here about a child abuse story, and she's telling me that the janitor at her school used to molest her. I'm looking at her. Now, this isn't a press release we got where we're just saying the story that night. I'm talking to her. Horrible. As a journalist, I'm trying to keep my composure and not cry with her. Yeah.
Let me find this man.
At the same time, not calling the janitor every name I wanted to say. Yeah. Still having integrity because he hasn't been convicted of what she's accusing him of doing. That type of stuff.
And then in situations like that, like you said, you have to keep your composure. You have to stay I would like to go off on that dude. I like this little kid, man. who could do such a thing as the human? And then you got to realize too, at the same time, what if she was lying to?
Yes, and that's the thing. That's the thing. We've all seen those stories unfold to where this person was just called the bad guy, and we all believed it. And then the person's like, "Oh, I lied. He didn't do this to me, or she didn't do this to me." That's why it's important to remain unbiased, because you never want to have to go back and retract something that you said. And at the end of the day, the public is forming their own opinion. From you, they just need the facts. Now, they can get the emotion and the feeling from the person you're interviewing, but let them give that to you. I'm not giving that to you. Have to remember that.
There's a mic drop moment right there. Boom, it's real. So with that being said, when you deal with kind of like stories like that, where it takes a hold on you. You said you call your mom, but what else do you do? How do you handle that? Just to
That's pretty much it.
get yourself back to reality.
Yeah, I mean, I do church and read my Bible and decompress that way. But I'm doing that whether it's a good story or a bad story. But yeah, I feel like just talking to those closest to me. Maybe there's another reporter who's working on the same story that I'm close to at a competing station, and we're talking and dissecting. Like, hey, are your mentals good? Yeah, I'm good. Are your mentals good? Yeah. Sometimes that's all it takes, just to know that, like, even if they're not good at the moment, that someone cares to ask. Mental health is so important. I mean, there are journalists we're taking sick days just simply because we need a mental health day.
Yes.
So yeah.
Say that one more time. Say that one more time. You guys are taking a mental health day.
Yeah, sometimes you're taking a mental health day because you need it, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. I can't pour from an empty cup. I can't give to the viewer something that I don't have within me.
Yeah, you just be on there like that.
Yeah, just lifeless, just spurting out and regurgitating information, and it's more than that as a journalist. So, yeah. Just making sure I'm my best self.
Yes. With that being said, though, so being in the news, just reporting out this, seeing all this stuff, has it challenged your faith at all? Have you stepped away from it, or has it made you stronger?
It's made me stronger. I don't think I would ever allow something to make my faith with God waver. I look at that. I won't go into all that because respecting your viewers who might see it and might have different faiths, but I just feel like, I don't know, I would feel like that's a distraction from the enemy to make me think like that. I do feel like everything happens for a reason. So I try not to question things. There are times where it's tough to deal with the reality, but I'm never questioning the source who made reality possible, if that makes sense. I'm not doing that.
So before
I also know that for me to deal with it, he's equipped me with everything I need to deal with the situation. Sometimes I just have to dig deep and realize that I have the strength that I need to deal with it.
There we go. Come on, preach it. Let it out. Let's go. I hear you. Let the Spirit speak.
Oh my goodness.
He's trying to come out. I hear him.
Yeah.
But that's what I do. I usually just pray before everything. Pray, like, people, if somebody's asking me, how do you handle it, Chris? What do you do in that situation? For me, truthfully, I go to God every time, man. Because that's what it's all about. The Holy Spirit will lead you and direct you and guide you with the right words that you need to hear at the right times to speak to the people what they need to hear. And that's the biggest blessing of all. Like you said, I couldn't do anything that would turn me away from my faith. No, nothing could turn me away or take me from the hand of God. Is that what, Romans? Nothing
I don't know now. Look, I don't want to say it's Romans and it's Ephesians. I don't know now.
Romans, I think.
It's in there. I know it's in there somewhere.
In Romans, I think it was 8 or 11, it says, nothing shall pluck me from his hand. No power of man, nothing. No angels, no dark angels, nothing can take me from God's hand. And with that being said, that's where I go, man. That's where I get my power at. I need to be re-energized. I need to, get something removed off of me because, like you said, it does mentally drain you. You can't pour from an empty cup, man. So you got to go to the source. Let them fill you back up. Fill them blessings back into that cup. You like how I did that, huh?
Yeah, look, you summed it up perfectly.
And that's how you do it, man. Do you pray before it, like before you go out to the field, or how do you do it?
I pray every day when I wake up, just to have a good day.
Yeah, that's
There
right.
might be moments throughout the day where I'm dealing with a tense situation. I'm like, Lord, all right, but
What you do today?
yeah. But I'm praying regardless.
You get like into devotions? What do you do? For your fans, do you get into like devotions? What do you open the Bible? What's going on?
I mean, there are times I might post a scripture or something on my story that I like, or something that I've heard throughout the day. Just inspiration in general. Sometimes I might see like a cute mural that has something inspirational on it and put it. You never know who needs what at a specific time. So, okay. But I'm also looking at my colleagues who post the same things, and I'm like, girl, I needed that today. You didn't even know.
Like, you don't know, man. I needed that today.
Yeah, I needed that.
You talking to me? What advice would you give to someone who is interested in pursuing a career in journalism?
Go for it. Do the internships.
Especially with the current media landscape right now.
I would just encourage internships. Get into a newsroom to see if it's what you like. See the on-air aspect, the off-air aspects, the behind-the-scenes aspect. To know what's best for you. Some people get into journalism thinking they want to report, and they realize, I really want to produce, or I actually prefer being in the control room. With all of the gadgets, helping make the show come to life. There's so many intricate, important parts of a newscast. So that internship is what's important. But then also life's a journey too. Maybe you get that producer position thinking you like it and you want to do something else. Our newsroom is ever evolving. Now they have digital journalists who they're not on air, but they put stuff on the web that are stories that, you would air on a newscast. So there's always a way to do it. Just finding someone who believes in you while also believing in yourself and your craft and make it happen.
Like you said, most importantly, don't go to the big networks. Don't go to the big cities. When you start off, start in the smaller cities.
You wouldn't get it if it wasn't for you. So at the same time, your blessing's your blessing. I'm just saying, for me, it was nice to start off in a smaller market and learn the ropes, and I could afford to make mistakes there. I'd rather make a mistake in one smaller city where the population is 2,000 than in a population of 400,000. So that's just my personal thing. But to each his own. Make your mistakes wherever you make them,
Now, with that being said, being in a bigger or smaller market as a reporter, and you're seen all over TV, is it harder for you to go out in public, or you got like that fame status, or what's going on?
I'm not that person. If I see someone, they're like, hey, let's take a picture, let's do this, I'm all for it. Cool. I just feel like we're all humans. There's no big eyes, little U's. We're all human.
Hey, amen to that. Well said. You sure you're not supposed to be a preacher?
Yeah, I'm sure.
All right. Tell me about a particular interview or story you covered. What made it so impactful to you?
I think the child abuse
weekend, especially if you're entering the state from Louisiana.
You could make a whole meal out of it.
I told him that's the equivalent of people saying mac and cheese is a whole meal. No, it's a side. Like spaghetti
and
is
back from the commercial break. Welcome.
Yes.
So before we are cut off rudely, let's talk about. We were beginning to ask the question. She was beginning to tell us about just a particular memory or interview or story that you covered that made an impact on you.
Yeah, I think the child abuse series I did was one. I think the Lorenzen Wright case, that one, and then the one I shared about Monroe, seeing that dead body. Those are ones that have stuck with me.
Now, do you ever have dreams about those or anything?
Oh no, it's not I'd be in therapy if that was the case. Which there's nothing.
That's what I was thinking. I was or something like that. I mean, as a human coming across something like that, and if you're not used to experiencing stuff like that, would that happen? Do you have flashbacks, nightmares?
Yeah, it definitely sticks with you. But I mean, at the time, my news director, he great guy. He was just like, hey, are you good? Do you need to talk about it? Do you need anything? So I was good. Sometimes just hearing that is what you need,
Yeah. So. How do you balance your personal beliefs and opinions with the need to remain neutral and objective when you're reporting.
Yeah, I think back to what we were just saying a minute ago, reporting the facts, not giving emotions or what I feel. I let the people I interview from both sides of the spectrum do that for me. It's not my job. I'm just giving you the facts. I'm giving you the facts. So, for example, something that we had here and now it's gone in other states, they're saying that drag shows are considered, like they're relating them to strip clubs. They're like, oh, you can't have drag performances. It's equivalent of strippers and all this, whatever. Like I'm making it in layman's terms. You don't need to know if I attend drag shows or not. You know, that's no one's business as a viewer, but you're going to hear what the bill is that's being filed in legislation. And then you're going to hear from some drag performers about how they feel. You're going to hear from some people who support the bill who feel like it's insane. Then as the viewer, you feel how you feel about it. That's my job.
So you're telling me that you go to drag shows?
Hmm?
Are you telling me you go to the drag shows?
No, what I'm saying is these stories. No, I know what you're trying to do. No, I was telling you that I'm giving you facts and I'll let the people I interview give the opinion.
I hear you.
Yeah, I saw what you tried to do. Saw that.
Oh!
I saw.
All right. So what are some of your goals and inspirations for the future of your career?
Goals. I want to continue to tell impactful stories.
Okay.
I want to continue to push myself. Sometimes uncomfortable situations bring out positive results. So telling those tough stories that maybe I was like, I don't know how I'm going to tell the story, and doing it and showing that I can do it. I hope to move up in markets. I hope to meet more people. I met a lot of amazing people. The journalism family, as I like to say, we have different call letters and all that, but at the end of the day, we're still covering stories. We're still trying to make an impact, and we're still dealing with some of the same things. So hope to meet more people.
That's the whole point of being there.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to actually step back into your story. When you were in college, you said you studied Spanish.
Yes. My aunt played basketball overseas and in a Spanish-speaking country, and now she teaches it. So I really love the Latin, Hispanic culture, whichever one you want to say. So I took it up in college, did study abroad in Madrid. Love it. And then it also helps, you know, if I'm at a scene or something and someone doesn't speak English, conversationally finding out what's going on to relay, you know. And then too, you know, when I say viewers matter, that's all viewers. That's Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, you know, whatever. Like everyone matters. So wouldn't you need that representation at a scene to make them feel heard? Being able to speak to them, you know, we're supposed to make voices heard, but how can you do that if you can't speak or understand the voice that's speaking? So that's why I was saying representation in the newsroom matters, because if it's an all white newsroom, you're leaving out a lot of demographics that are watching.
Yeah. Look at you preaching again.
Oh my goodness.
You're back at it again. Give her the mic.
Back at it.
So did you, I was going to say, did you preach over there? Did you speak? Did you speak overseas at all? Did you do any reporting over there?
No. Just like college courses, different things like that. Nothing. Well, I did some journalism, public speaking classes while over there, but we weren't making packages or stories that would go on a newscast or anything like that. Nothing like that.
Did you find yourself wanting to at all? Or
did I find myself what?
Did you find yourself like wanting to do any reporting over there? No? Not even.
I was already taking my major classes and finished all that too. Like I was over there just to immerse myself in the culture. Like had nothing to do with broadcasting or anything like that. Like I was over there going to art museums, studying the language. I stayed with a lady who like lives there, so I had a host family. Like I was focused on immersing myself. It was outside of journalism.
So give us a taste a little bit about that. Like, was this your first like experience outside the States, or how many times have you been over there previously?
It was my first time.
So what was it like? Just kind of give somebody like who's never been out of the States. What was it like? How did
It was exciting. It was nerve-wracking. I wasn't fluent at the time, so there were times I'm just like, Lord, how do I, I have a map. I have to take a train to school every day. They have a siesta every day, which is nice, which is when they close everything down, you go home and take a nap, and they resume with daily operations. The food was fantastic. Paella, my first time having it. It's like a seafood dish, so like rice, and then you put like clams and different seafood on top. So good. They have a nightlife, but I was young at the time. They drink wine with every meal. I wasn't drinking though. I wasn't even 20 at the time.
Whoa.
So yeah, I was young. So younger, I guess. I'm not old now, but yeah, it was just a fun experience. I would encourage anyone, especially college students, if you have the opportunity to study abroad, do it. I loved it over there. They had a nice appreciation for their environment. Here, you see people throw a bottle out on the street if they don't want it in their car. Over there, you get fined for it. They have people that sweep the streets every night. There's no bubble gum on the sidewalks. Like a true pride for where you are. We could learn a few things, but also too, it also makes you appreciate the USA. As far as the rights that we have. It's in some parts like you're not allowed to have a gun in your home. I'm thankful I can, if I want to, have one here to protect myself. So pros and cons, but nevertheless, beautiful area.
Now, if you had the option, stay here in the States or go there, what would you do?
No, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
You don't know?
I love both. Can I say I love both?
Yeah. For me, the same question. I think I would say I don't know. I think it just depends on how it goes over there. I mean, because I've traveled a lot, within my lifetime. But I can say to myself, every place starts to feel, after you've been there for a period of time, it starts to feel the same. Yeah, I mean, people are probably watching right now, listening. You're in your hometown, and you probably feel like, man, I need to get out of here. I need to experience something new. But the truth is, no matter where you go, I mean, it might be exciting at first, but eventually you're going to have that same feeling. So I think regardless for this question, here and then, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of different outside the States, to be honest, people.
Yeah. I feel like it's what you make of it. We, like you mentioned, the hometown, being in Memphis, there were people who weren't doing well in Memphis. Well, I'm going to move to Dallas and I'm going to make some of them. I said, well, if you have that same horrible work ethic in Dallas that you had in Memphis, you won't. So, it's what you make of it. Just like college, there are people who went to Ivy League schools who still don't have a job. There are people who went to community colleges who are now thriving. It's what you do with the resources you have. So I feel like I could do well wherever as long as I hone in on my skills and use them wisely. Any place you could get bored, Madrid or Memphis, making the best of your environment and appreciating where you are at the time.
And I would say, truthfully, my answer for this question, no, I wouldn't want to stay in one place. But if I had the option, it was all paid for, everything's taken care of, shoot, I'm backpacking everywhere. See you later.
Yeah.
You won't see me.
It's an experience. It's an experience for sure that I think, do at least one in your life. Do at least once in your lifetime.
Yeah, I would say I agree with that. Definitely, if you get the opportunity and it comes up and you can go wherever, do it. Do it because it's going to be awesome. It's going to be totally worth it. And shoot, you can even write about it if you have a journal. Maybe possibly write a book if you want to.
Yeah.
Now, do you find
a lot of writers do leave to get inspiration for things? So that's a good point.
Do you find yourself in that at all? Do you write about anything?
No, and I feel like maybe because I'm always writing stories for work. I actually was telling one of my friends, I used to read a lot. I used to always read. And I don't know, I feel like college took the fun out of it because I always had to read, for a test or something. But I'm finding myself getting back into reading and finding love of soaking into a story, not for work or, for an assignment that's due, but for simple pleasure. So, yeah. I find a lot of times too, whatever your occupation is, you tend not to do it outside of work hours. because you're tired of doing it so often.
Yeah, I respect
Yeah.
that too. Like you said, when you do it, have to do it all for your job. Eventually, you just get tired of doing it. You're like, I want to take a break from doing that.
Yeah.
Because then, like, to be honest, it'll pretty much feel like you're at work still. You're just doing something like homework.
Mhm.
But you said you like to read, though. What kind of
Mhm.
books did you like to get into? Science fiction, romance?
Um, I like romance novels. They're cool. I like murder mysteries. I think those are cool. I also like just books that educate you. So, like the Rich Dad Poor Dad type books. Things where I've gained something.
Oh, you like self-help books, you're saying?
I like those too.
Them are the best ones because if you're getting something from it, yeah, that's what
Mhm.
them are my kind of books. I like to read a lot of self-help. Just that, like, if you're learning from something, like picking up, whatever they're writing about, telling you, and then kind of experience it in your everyday life, it just makes it more better.
Yeah.
And then, pretty much, yeah, just changing your mindset is a better way to put it.
Yes.
Seeing the world differently, viewing it differently, seeing, what you can do. Like you said, you went overseas and you experienced firsthand that they clean up in their environment. Coming back here, you see like gum everywhere, trash everywhere, people just throwing stuff everywhere. And then inside, you think yourself after being over there for so long that you find yourself wanting to do something about it, make a movement.
I mean, I feel like I was more uh, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. Basically, I wasn't going to sit around. Like if I saw some trash and it disgusted me, I'm just going to pick it up and throw it away, and not be like, oh, I'll wait for the garbage truck man to pick it up when he sees it, type situation.
You're gonna do something about it instead of talk about it.
But I'm not out here organizing neighborhood cleanups now. It's just when I felt the need to do it.
Not yet. You're gonna be out there eventually.
Yeah, maybe one day.
Get out there and start doing your thing. Now, if you didn't become a reporter, what would you end up doing?
Law, probably.
Really?
Yeah, and it's funny the number of people that it's not funny. When I say funny, it's ironic. The number of people who are journalists who have law degrees. So.
Well, I was thinking that too because you were saying to yourself, you were telling us that you were beginning to study law before, right?
I was thinking about it.
Yeah.
And
in a
I
way,
just decided.
yeah.
I don't know if it was like the number of years I'd be in school that deterred me from it, but yeah, I just decided journalism for me, and I'm thankful I did. It's been rewarding.
So, in law, what were you going to be? The lawyer, the cop, the judge? What's going on?
Probably lawyer. Yeah.
Because you like to write? What? Any reason? Any particular reason why?
I don't know. Maybe watching Law and Order and stuff growing up. I don't know. I just and then I also felt like the justice system was kind of skewed in some aspects. And I'm always that person where it's like, hey, if you don't like it, join it, beat it type situation.
Yeah.
And I mean, even with journalism, with the way some stories are covered, growing up and seeing that, like, hey, I wouldn't have covered that in that way, or hey, I can tell how you feel about this person with the way you're reporting. So hey, if you don't like it, get that degree and join it and be the change you want to see. So.
And are you gonna be? I'm gonna see you next year running, right? 2024.
No, you won't. You will not see me in politics. You will not. You will not. But I will be covering it though.
Yeah, I guess
more likely not. Yeah.
Now, how do you talk about that a little bit more too? What is that experience like? Just being out there, just during that whole just madness.
It's fun, sometimes the campaign trail can get really messy and sticky, and they're just saying things. They're just saying anything to get a vote. They're saying anything to throw somebody under the bus. Just again, I guess the most important thing, just being unbiased and telling all sides. You can't just cover one candidate. You got to cover them all. That type of situation.
So that's what I was thinking too. Like, Okay, with Trump a couple years ago and being in the news, and he said only Fox is the true news station. How did you feel about that?
I don't feel any type of way.
I was just kind of curious of how some people felt about it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't feel like they're the only true news station, but to each his own. Maybe they're his truth.
Yeah.
They tell his truth. So for him, it's the truth. It shouldn't be that much of a divide to where you feel like one station is conservative and one isn't. You should be able to get the news delivered in a factual manner regardless, but that's not society today. But I feel like on the local level, you get more of that non-biased reporting.
And then you gotta, like you said, you gotta find yourself not pulling for certain people. How do you handle that? You just
Excuse me. It's easy, just focusing on the facts.
okay.
Focusing on the facts.
Facts, man. That's gonna be your book. That's when you come out with a book. Facts.
The facts. The facts. I like that. Yeah.
The facts. All right. So, as we begin to wrap this thing up, I just simply want to say thank you for coming on and telling your story.
Oh, thank you for having me. I've enjoyed you. This has been nice.
Truly an honor and a privilege just to learn all the information that you fed us, that you told us. What goes on firsthand. And giving us a taste of being a little bit of a preacher over there.
Oh my goodness, no, I have not been to seminary school, but for those up and coming journalists, it's nice to get different perspectives. I know you speak to a wide array of people, and everyone's story is different. The reason that people get into it is different, but hopefully at the end of the day, every journalist has one thing that's the same, and that's about telling the truth and making a positive impact. We all have different reasons we got into it and different ways we got into it and different markets we entered. At the end of the day, as long as you're telling the truth and being factual and having integrity, then we're doing our job.
All right. Well said. Okay, I'll just wrap this up with like some just random questions for you. Not about your job, just randomly. So let's go with since people like to hear about do you have a testimony that you like to share?
I wouldn't say.
Or how you came to your faith?
I got baptized my senior year of high school at a youth conference in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Yep. I feel as far as the testimony is concerned, when I got out of college, I applied to so many stations. And there was a moment where I was just, dozens, at this time, you could send like a CD you could like mail a CD or, you're sending people your YouTube link. And there were some times where I would get hard on myself and be like, well, maybe this isn't what I need to be doing, And at the end of the day, all you need is one yes, get your foot in the door. And I feel like if there is a testimony to tell, just not giving up and, trusting in the source and trusting in your own abilities to know that if you really want to do something, just keep working at it. Don't let one person's no deter you from your passion. Maybe they didn't see something in you, but it wasn't for them to see.
Yeah.
They weren't meant to see it. The person who gave me the job, it was meant for them to see it. And that's all that matters.
And
then one day, they'll be reaching out to you saying, hey, can you come work in my market? I'm like,
I tried, but you didn't.
I'm a little past that right now, but thank you.
Thank you anyway. Thank you. No, like what you were saying, like a lot of it's like you can lose your confidence and stuff. You're putting job after job. You're putting all your links out there. You're just hoping to get that yes. And I heard what helped me with that situation was a fella named Les Brown. I used to listen to him on YouTube. I still do from time to time. And he told me, well, he was kind of talking to me in this video. But anyway, he was saying that he was a door salesman, and he would go door to door selling something. He had to sell TVs. Him and his buddy would go door to door trying to sell. And as he got to the door, first door, he would ask them, "Do you want to buy this TV?" No, they slammed the door on his face. And that immediately, like you said, will kind of shake your confidence and kind of make you feel a type of way, like, maybe this isn't for me. So his buddy ended up going to the car and saying, "I can't do this, man." I mean, Les was like, "I got to go, man, because I got to feed my family. I got to take care of my family." So he kept going door to door. Everybody would slam it on his face, slamming the door on his face, saying, "No, no, I don't want to buy that TV." And eventually, it started becoming a game to him. He's like, "I know there's a yes out here somewhere, so I'm going to keep going until I get that yes." And when I heard that, I was like, that is so true, man. So often we find ourselves in a situation where, yes, it can be very discouraging, disheartening, just you feel a type of way like maybe this isn't my calling, maybe this isn't for me. But for the listener or viewer right now, watcher, if you're in that situation where you're applying job after job, going after whatever it is, whatever you're seeking, and you find yourself just being really discouraged and you think maybe it's not for me, keep pushing, keep going, because there is a yes out there for you, and it will pay off for you. I promise you that. You just got to keep going. It's going to get tough. Yeah, it's going to be rough. But get out there and keep going, keep pushing. And you're going to find that yes, and it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it. Would you agree? Sorry to preach over here myself. Look what you done to me.
No, that was good. That was good. That was good.
You're preaching to me. Got me preaching. All right. So the second one, if you could have any kind of car in the world, any car. I mean, not in the world. Any car.
Excuse me.
Which one are you taking?
I like Porsche. They're nice. I like the G-Wagons too. They're nice.
I like the Ford Sports, man. I think they're pretty nice. I drove a couple of those, and they're nice. I don't know. I'm kind of old fashioned. I like to drive one of the first Fords that came out. One of them wagons.
Mm-hmm.
I like to take them out for a spin. I was like, that'd be kind of cool.
Okay.
Have a Ford to drive around. Sports car wise, I'd take a Corvette.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking like the newer ones. I'm talking like I said, I'm old fashioned. I'm one of them old souls. So I would take one of the, I think it was, I'd take one of the Corvettes from the 50s. Red and white one. Little Corvette. I know somebody who was a sports junkie will say the Corvette was actually made to be the woman's sports car, but I'm a little guy, man. I mean, it will work out perfectly for me. I'll try that stick. I'll take off, man. The convertible, I'll be good to go.
Yeah.
Any particular reason why you chose yours?
Well, I chose the Porsche.
Yep.
Just think they're cute.
All right.
No particular reason. As long as the car gets me from point A to point B, I'm fine.
I respect that.
Yeah.
Where would you go in your Porsche? Where you going to travel to? Full taking gas? Where you going?
I want to visit Africa. That's on my bucket list. So.
I was gonna. You just answered my next question. You going anywhere in the world and traveling anywhere? It's all paid for. Everything. Where you going? Africa. What part?
I don't even know. But if you want me to be specific, then maybe Paris. It's just beautiful. But I know I want to visit the motherland one day. So.
I was like, I know some people over in Africa, so if we can make this trip happen.
Yeah, I know a few people over there too.
Give you a place to stay.
Yeah.
Experience it.
But I probably wouldn't do. I probably immerse myself in the culture like I did before. I don't want to do the touristy scene. I want to see what it's like for real.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. The final question, guys.
Okay.
If anybody wants to get a hold of you, connect to you in a way because they were touched or moved by your story, or just wants to get in contact with you to talk to you, how can they do that?
You can. I have social medias. All of my social media is the same at JFRANSEEN Jeane Franseen TV. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
You heard it here first, guys. She told her story. I just want to say thank you for watching and listening. And also, for you guys that are watching and listening, this is a platform for everyone. You can come on just like how she did, and you can tell your story from the beginning all the way to the end. And, if you want to do that, you can contact me on LinkedIn. It's Chris Baker Jr. I'll be probably the first thing that pops up. It'll say something like, if you go on Google and you say something to me, Chris Baker Jr. will come up, talk show host or something like that. You just click on that, boom. Just connect to me on there and we'll make it happen. And if you like the show, go on Podbean or iHeartRadio or whatever platform you like to use. I am on it. It's called Tell Me Your Story, and you can hear and view this story or many others to come. Other than that, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This is Chris. That's Jay. We're out of here. Peace.
In a developing story, the attorney for the family of Tommy McLaughlin Jr. is calling for the immediate firing of the Shreveport police officers involved in his arrest.